So yes, and first I would like to welcome all of you joining our session. I think it's more than 6 people join the session right now. And many of you have already added your name affiliation and so many of you have been typing, so I need to scrolling down my screen while you are typing. And so to get things started, I would like to remind everyone that by participating in the session, you agree to adhere to the ESIP community participation guideline. And there's the guideline in the documents. And if you have seen any issues during the meeting, please, you can report on the link here. And you are all welcome and encouraged to take notes in this document. This is a collaborative document. We don't want only one person spending the entire time of the meeting taking the notes. So if you see anything that's missing, please drop that in the documents. And the whole goal of this session is to introduce the work that the data readiness cluster within ESIP has been doing, including the the beta version of our problem statements and work plan or the roadmap for the community-driven AI readiness standards. And we want to collect your feedback on this document as well as a sample checklist for the AI data readiness. To achieve this goal, we have several activities designed. First is a so-called celebratory interview. So that in that way, we'll introduce the roadmap for the community-driven data readiness for AI that we have been developing within the data readiness cluster in the past 3 months, I think, if I do my math right. And you can see the link to some relevant materials, including the data readiness cluster problem statement and work plan. And you can also join our mailing list whenever you feel ready. After the interview, we will try to collect feedback for the roadmap using the Mentimeters. And just a quick logistic, if you are not talking, I would appreciate you can mute yourself. And after the feedback collection for the roadmap, we're going to go through a breakout session for 2 rounds to provide your input on a sample checklist on AI ready data that we have been developing within the cluster. And we'll break out into 3 groups led by Rob, Tyler, and Eric on 3 main topics. One's data quality, one's data documentation, and one's data access. And so that's the overview of this session. And I would encourage, I know sometimes people feel don't want to go into breakout session, but the breakout room is really important for this session. So we encourage you, even if you just want to be the fly on the wall, to watch what other people are talking about and discussing, you are always welcome to join each breakout session. So we want to do a quick exercise to understand who we have here today. So if you go to a Mentimeter, this link, the Mentimeter pool, or you can go to this tab, Mentimeter, in the Kiko chat as well. And you can see something like this. We are trying to test to see who we have, whether you're a data provider, data manager, or AI, a machine learning practitioner, etc. So I'm actually going to go to the present mode, and I encourage you all to fill this to let us know who you are, who we have here. Okay, we have a lot. We're heavy on the data provider, data manager side. I hope you can see the results that I was showing right now live. If you cannot see it, let me know. Again, skewed towards data provider, data manager. I'm actually surprised to see it's like, oh, we have more AI ML practitioner here. And we also have some curious bystander, which is good as well. And hope you are more interested instead of concerned, but it's all legit. Sometimes people can be concerned about the AI development if it's not responsible development. I've given it 30 more seconds and we'll close this part. Thanks. It looks like we have really strong presence of data provider and data manager, which is great. We need a lot of data provider manager to think about how to make the data AI ready. I see many of you are still filling in this question. You can still do that, and I will keep this open. But right now, I want to turn it to Eric, who will give a brief background of what we're trying to do and how we get there with some history. Eric, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Douglas. Let me share my screen here. Yeah, so thanks everyone for coming, and good morning from where I am, or good afternoon, where most of you likely are. We're, the reason for this AI ready data segment, I want to try to create in my little brief overview a sense of why are we doing this? Why are we doing this right now? So what we need on this first slide is a definition of AI readiness. One of the things that I was surprised when I was temporarily acting as the NOAA Center for Artificial Intelligence Director, job that Rob has gladly taken over now, was we had this mission to make AI ready data available, but no real definition, no real clear way to define that. So definitely we need that definition. Obviously, we want that to be a community defined and the right communities involved. Particularly, we're talking the earth science information community and everyone that's involved in ESIP. We also want assessment tools for data providers to know how AI ready is their data. That's something I think that's going to be critical to the success of this, is letting people have a set of tools to figure out if they're providing data that is AI ready or not. Methods to represent a data set's readiness level, and I'll talk a little bit more about the importance of this to the community, to the users, to everyone, is how do we easily understand what the data that we're going to be running into more and more on the cloud, what is its readiness level? How easy is it to use? Can I take a quick look at it, or am I making a lifetime commitment to try to get into this data? Ideally, we're headed towards a formally published standard or set of standards, but we heard from the community early on in this project that what they want now is an 80% solution, because people are starting to move data up now, starting to publish it as AI ready even at the moment. And we'd rather have an 80% done standard, something that people can work with, than wait 2 or 3 years to get to a published standard, though we'd like to see that ultimately. And then, of course, I'm a big one for Agile, so a process to review and update all of this on a recurring basis. So we'll do it, we'll publish it, we'll learn some things. I'm certain that what we do will run into some challenges in the community when we face contact with reality, but a process where we can come back and review this. How did we get here? So in 2019, there was an executive order on AI research and development that said basically you'll improve your model and data inventory documentation. You'll make improvements to the access and quality of AI data based on the AI research community's feedback. So under that executive order, we're mandated to try to improve this, to try to make AI ready data available to the community and meet the standards of documentation, access, and quality. There was an OSTP subcommittee on open science that did a first draft of a matrix, which if you've been to any of our meetings, you've seen discussed, and Tyler was part of that, to define the specific improvements. And that matrix is a foundation, but really wasn't sufficient for what we needed to do. So from the executive order to the committee, we decided that an ESIP cluster was the perfect place to develop these community standards that we needed. Obviously this group is very well tailored for that, particularly in the environmental sciences. So hence the origin of our cluster. What I want to convince you guys is, there's a lot of great things going on. And after one day at the ESIP meeting, I'm always blown away by how many places you could be putting your energy. Metadata standards, access, documentation, all sorts of things. So what's the urgency behind AI ready data? Well, from my perspective, it's a couple things. And using the data lake example on the right there. Data collection is rapidly increasing. There's citizen science, there's an Internet of Things. I heard from the Navy the other day about an ocean of things. There are climate initiatives coming under the new administration that will put sensors out in the environment. And the collection is just becoming more and more rapid, more and more affordable. And we're going to have a lot of data coming in without a corresponding increase in the number of data managers and scientists. Multiple agencies are populating data lakes now, meaning we're taking data from our on-prem systems and the whatever proprietary ways we stored it and starting to push it up. It's true certainly for NASA and NOAA. I've seen some from USGS. As long as we're going through that effort and pushing data into data lakes, why not make it in some kind of standard and some kind of accessible form that will really benefit the whole community? In order to transform data, that's step 4 in the document, the tools must have access to them. And right now, we're in a position where if we can bring these standards, I think we can drive the tool interfaces, what they're capable of interfacing with, how they work with the data, that sort of thing. If the tools get too far ahead of us, we'll be trying to do the reverse and work our magic to get them to integrate with those tools. I think right now is a chance where we can actually drive some of that the other way. An ounce of prevention now is worth a pound of cure. Again, I think as we get all this data up and into the cloud, as more and more discoverable as you're trying to integrate across multiple archives, and the idea of one scientist talking to one archive really starts to go away, and all the interesting projects are going to be across many archives. A little bit of prevention now in terms of wrangling that chaos is going to help us a lot down the road to make it more scientifically viable. And the last thing is, there's that famous quote that data preparation accounts for about 80% of the work of data scientists. If I give you nothing else from my talk today, Rob hunted up where he found that quote in a Forbes document. So if you want to use it in your publications later, that bit.ly link will take you to the Forbes article on it. It is a lot of work wrangling data, however you define wrangling data. And before you get into it, sometimes you just want to know about it. And that goes to my next and last slide. So one of the things that we did with the NOAA Center for Artificial Intelligence was our team was chartered to do an annual assessment of NOAA AI training resources and requirements. So basically went out NOAA-wide, and I'm sure that similar things have been done at other agencies. But how does it relate to what we're talking about here today? So if you go down to the identified needs for promoting an AI proficient workforce, it relates in a couple of ways. One, a huge request that came back across the NOAA enterprise was providing time to explore AI applications. And certainly providing time, as in letting staff do it, and funding, but having AI-ready data that you know what the commitment is. So if you have that dashboard that you can quickly go in and evaluate the data and see what it's going to do, what kind of time commitment are you making? Is this going to tie you up with this data for months and months, would really help with that problem, because then you know what you're biting off as you get into exploring some of these applications. The number 2 request was just providing AI-ready data. It's interesting. Some of the elements of NOAA have big data storage and they have processing galore and those sort of things, but others wanted both AI-ready data and a sandbox environment combined. Part of that is what we're calling learning journeys. But a key element to that is having the data up there in a form that, hey, I've got some new tools I want to try against this. There's some amazing new toolkits out there. Viami is one that's an imagery toolkit in NOAA that fisheries uses. I'd love to experiment with that. Well, if you have the data there, if you have an understanding of its readiness, and you have the toolkit, very quickly a scientist can be up and saying, does this help my mission area? And then the practices for developing effective AI applications also relates to AI data. So that's it for me. The last thing I wanted to say before I hand it over to the celebrity interview was, I've used standards for years, obviously ISO standards for metadata and access and all sorts of things. Never really appreciated until we started this group, all the work that goes into it. It's great to see a community come together. It's great to see how much input we can bring together into something useful and solve a common problem. So I'm happy to be part of that, and I will turn it over to the interview team.
Thanks, Eric. And like Eric mentioned, the whole thing started after our ESIP winter meeting in January. So we started a group trying to combine people from different agencies and even continents to work on this topic together. And today, I um, I decided to put myself and Tyler as a celebrity for this like 10 minutes interview. And Rob will be our interviewer to ask us some questions to give everyone some background of what the class has been up to and how we arrived there. So that's the main purpose of it. And so thanks for highlighting three of us, Annie and Robbie, if you can take it away.
Absolutely. You guys are celebrities. So thank you for joining me for this interview.
And Rob, I want to correct you. Please don't use guys, as both me and Tyler are on the call. So it'd be great if we can be more inclusive.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right. So what does this project want to achieve?
Right. So I'll answer this first question. The main thing. So I come from an open data perspective. I'm definitely not an AI person. But when I read that executive order, I thought it was a great idea. And NOAA has oceans of data, atmospheres of data, and so you know, I immediately wanted to know, well, like what are the requirements? You know, you tell me we should make our data more available and more useful in AI R&D, but like, what does that mean? What specific improvements would you like us to make? How do we assess whether our data are already AI ready? And here we're specifically talking about like the NOAA team is coming at this from a US federal government context, right? So we've got tons of open data, we've got mandates to make our data open, but how do we ensure that they are as ready as they can be for people to use in AI R&D? And so we started looking around, and apparently there aren't standards, there aren't specs already developed for this, and so we felt strongly enough about it, and NOAA is really committed to AI, improving our AI, you know, use internally, and so we decided to take on this question. So basically, so AI in this particular case, we're defining that very broadly because all of the AI strategies within NOAA are defined very, very broadly. So AI in this case sort of encompasses machine learning. It encompasses you know, more traditional artificial intelligence. So we're using a sort of a layman's term. You know, it's not. We're not delving deeply into the intricacies of defining what AI means. We're using it sort of as in a layman's term, so that AI ready can encompass a broad range of applications. In this initial thing, we're focusing more on machine learning, just because that's more of our audience. And then I saw a question in the chat, like, how do we define AI ready? And basically, that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to talk to people who try to use our data within AI and machine learning applications, and basically ask them, like, what does your ideal data set look like? What are the things that you need to know about a data set to see whether it would be useful and applicable for your own AI applications?
Thank you so much, Tyler. All right, the next question is to Douglas. What is the work plan?
So right now, if you go to the document, you'll find a work plan defined by this cluster. And we are being really excited to see, like for today, we have more than 90 people join us. And none of us really individually know what AI-ready data really means. But collectively, with the community, we can work out a plan to move towards a definition or standard for AI-ready data. I try to steer away from definitions sometimes because there are already a lot exciting work out there. Like Ryan has mentioned in the heliophysics, there's some community effort already starting to outline what AI-ready data means for a specific field. But when we combine the community together for Earth, space science, and environmental science together, we can moving towards community standards. And the first stage for this roadmap is to understand who we should talk to and what's the target of the group. That's the problem statements document you have may have already seen. And I think we are through this stage, but it doesn't mean that everything is set. We can always go back. This document is evolving document. When we, in the development process, we see more things need to be included, or we need to focus on a specific narrow topic, we can do that always, evolving process and engaging with new people. And now we're looking for example use cases and sometimes also the horror stories of what AI-ready data means, or what AI-ready data should look like, to distill the key aspects that make the data ready for machine learning development, specifically in this stage. And the definition or the distillation of all those characteristics or key aspects is ideally leading towards a checklist for the data providers and data users that can be used to understand how the data set is ready to enable AI applications. And next stage will be moving towards a community standard and best practice of how to curate and distribute a data set that's ready for the AI and machine learning development.
Awesome, Douglas. All right, I got a question for Tyler. Can you say a little more about how we arrived at the plan?
Yeah, so we really appreciate ESIP as a forum for collaboration in this case. We definitely did not want to just do this within NOAA. We wanted to be a broad collaboration because we want to make our results as broadly applicable as possible. So ESIP is a perfect collaboration space for us to start having these conversations. So we set up an ESIP cluster, brand new. I think we've had 3 meetings maybe just since the winter meeting, so we have the ESIP cluster has an email list, which is linked in the notes there. We currently have 50 people signed up for the email list, which I think is fantastic. So that encompasses 5 federal agencies, NOAA, NASA, USGS, a couple of Department of Energy labs, and the National Science Foundation. We have 11 folks from 11 universities, 5 NGOs, 2 private industry groups, and even 4 international groups from the UK, Germany, and Australia. So we're really trying to come up with a broad coalition of folks to discuss this. And specifically, we need to be talking to data providers, so people who will need to be able to assess their data sets against this for their AI readiness. But we especially want to talk to people who are actually using open data in their AI R&D research. So we want to talk to the grad students. We want to talk to people in private industry who are trying to use U.S. government open data and talk to them about what their requirements are, what their needs are, what makes a data set easier or harder to use. So we definitely want to extend an invitation for anybody who's in this group who is interested in this to please join us in the cluster. Especially over the next couple of months, we're going to be, Douglas is going to talk about this more, but we have a lot to do in the next couple of months, and we're really hoping that a broad coalition of folks can help us with this.
Excellent, Tyler. And so in that spirit, what is the plan for the next 6 months by the winter ESIP meeting, Douglas?
So in the next 6 months, we have our short-term goal, which is trying to come up with a beta version of the checklist. And that's the short-term goal. We hope we can release something on our winter meeting session. And to achieve that, we are currently have a sample checklist, which is out there for comments. Everyone can make suggestions and comments on that document. And we highly encourage you to do that. And we're going to spend 15 minutes in our session today to collect your feedback on that specific documents. And I've seen a lot, because I have been distracted by the chat that's happening live. And I forgot one thing I need to say, which is there are several events happening throughout this next 6 months, including the upcoming, there's upcoming NOAA AI workshop. We want to summarize some of the lessons we learned, because Tyler will be dedicating her full-time job to do this AI-ready data efforts in the next 6 months. So she will be more hands-on on a lot of definition and trying to do a landscape analysis of what's happening. And I think Ken also shared some of the documents of what different groups have been working on similar topics, but I don't think I can open that link because of permission issues, but hope you can share that with everyone. And
I'll see if I can drop it right into the Google Doc that you're working on.
Yes. So short answer, in the next 6 months, we'll be working on this checklist. And longer version of answer, we're gonna start a road show to talk with different groups and to get input from different groups, from data provider to agency managers, and all the way to users and AI application developers, to make sure we get the input from different groups and not duplicate the other efforts that people have already been doing, such as the analysis ready data, as well as the cloud optimized analysis ready data, and all the different efforts have been ongoing already. We don't want to duplicate efforts.
That's very true. So in the spirit of time, I'll say thank you very much for these interviews. And also, Tyler, welcome to our team. We're very excited that you're going to be able to focus on this extremely interesting and challenging problem.
And thanks, Rob. And I need to switch from my celebrity hat to the moderator hat for this session, which I'm actually going to try to share my screen again. So we're going back to the Mentimeter. Based on what you have seen in this interview or this conversation, what do you like or not like about the roadmap? And in here, in this Mentimeter, you can just be like candid about if we miss anything that you think should be included. I think there a lot have been happening in the chat. All the chats will be saved. So don't worry that all those will be archived in a way. So right now, if you can just spend like several minutes to type in your feedback into this Mentimeter, so we can let everyone see in this Mentimeter format. Hopefully that we did a decent job capturing most of your comments. It's like quite, oh, okay. It's exciting to see some comments popping up. I like the idea of using a coalition to build out the AI-ready concept, definition, metrics. Thanks. And if you have any comments you think need to be addressed as the class move forward, please share it here as well. And I see people are asking questions. Somebody already raised the ethics of AI readiness. Thanks. Which is really important. I think different groups have been starting to talk about this topic of the AI ethics. Thanks. I really appreciate these comments about AI analysis ready data and versus cloud optimized data, which has its own champion, sometimes working this separately. We hope we will definitely talk with each other. And I think in the past, we have been talking with ARD community, and we will be continuing the conversation to make things interoperable within these groups as well. I think everyone liked the word interoperable. And on Thursday, as a segue, on Thursday, we are collaborating with the NASA ESDS working group on data interoperability to talk about the training data for machine learning applications and what that means for the AI readiness. Thanks. I think there are a lot of thumbs up for the community effort and the coalition. And there are also, let me pause the scrolling here. So somebody have commented on, we need clarity on the definition of AI for this community. I think that's very true. And like Tyler mentioned at the beginning, right now we're like narrowly focused on machine learning because the broad AI is too big to tackle as a group right now. But right now we're focused on machine learning, more traditional AI methods. Worrisome, I see a worrisome comments. If you're unclear about your goal, you might wander forever. I appreciate this comment. And we have a problem statement, and we are like planning our effort on this problem statement. If you have any comments, feel free to drop it in the problem statement document. We will be really happy to have more conversation about that. And I think given the interest of time, you can keep putting your comments here, and this will all be saved as well. Or if you feel more comfortable typing in the chat, please feel free to do so. And we're going to move on to our next activity, which is the checklist for AI ready data. And I'm actually, Tyler, do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to keep sharing?
Sure, I think it's better if I share.
Okay. 5 minutes, please.
Okay, no problem. Right, so I think maybe looking at some specifics might help help some of the comments that we were seeing. So basically, these are from the information that we've gathered so far. These are the a starting point of the kinds of factors that we've heard from AI R&D practitioners, that these are things, aspects of a data set that that they would need to know about to assess whether it's correct for their own particular application. We see data quality as one of the main categories, documentation is the next main category, and then data access. So let's look at a couple of factors here. So, okay, so to orient you in this, this checklist, we've got 3 sections for data quality, documentation, and access. And then at the end, we have some definitions of what we mean by each of these different factors, because it's some of them are a little squishy. So we're trying to do our best possible effort to make the definitions really clear. So I guess we'll start with data access. So so there are some things that we've heard from AI and machine learning practitioners that are really important, things that we don't necessarily always think about. So is there a clear data license? Can I use this data for commercial purposes? Is it open and usable for every single application? So that needs to be clear. It needs to be machine readable, if standardized and machine readable if possible. So there are aspects of, oops, undo. There are aspects of the data format, the file format. Is it machine readable? Is it available in at least one open non-proprietary format? And then data delivery. So direct file download, is there an API? Is it available on the cloud in optimized formats? So these are all, depending on your application, you may or may not care whether it's available on the cloud in an optimized format, because you might want an API. But these are all, this is, and there are some people who actually prefer to download the files and then keep them in their own on-premises, analysis system. But basically, this is information that potential data users would need to easily be able to find out to see whether it meets their own particular needs. So that's data access. Documentation is all about metadata. Does the data set have a unique persistent identifier? Is there data set or collection level metadata, but then also, is there a comprehensive description of each individual parameter within that data set? I call it a data dictionary. There's a lot of different words for that, a code book. But things like is it floating point or, integer? Is it nullable? If there are codes, what's the definition of each of those codes and how are they defined? What's the unit for each of these parameters? So, a detailed description of each parameter within the data set. So that's data documentation. And then the last one is data quality. So this is where, for me, some of the concepts get a little squishy, but again, this is not us just making things up. This is feedback that we've gotten from people who are trying to use data for machine learning. So for instance, consistency of the data set is super important. So if you've got a collection of data files, is the format exactly the same and the parameters exactly the same from one data set to the next? Or if you've got a time series, the timeliness of the data is sometimes very important depending on the application. So if you're trying to predict thunderstorms, you need up to the minute data, where if it's more climate related, then some delay is less important. So the timeliness, the provenance of the data, is it tracked and documented where these data came from? Are there checksums or other checks to ensure that the data have not changed from their original form, so data integrity. This is also a really important one that we've heard from a lot of AI and machine learning. Some of them have very specific requirements about the size of the data set, the number of samples that's available, the number of images, the total data volume, image sizes even can be really important. So anyway, within each of these, we've tried to capture the info that we have from the AI and machine learning community about what factors they would need to know about a data set to assess whether it's important to them or whether it meets their needs or not. So one more example, which is, so like this idea of is it gap filled? Have null values been filled? And have outliers been identified and handled? So this is a great example of different data users might have very different needs. Some users who are trying to use, let's say, some remote sensing data, they want to use sea surface temperature, and they want a data set that has been fully gap filled. They don't want to be remote sensing scientists to be able to use that data, right? They want it to be coming from a credible source, high quality data that's been gap filled, that's been reprocessed. But then there are some people who care very strongly about the particular gap filling algorithm, that wants to be applied. And what they really want is the raw data that has not been gap filled. And so different folks have different requirements for the data. And so our job as data providers is mostly to make sure that it's easy for them to find this information so that they can really narrow down the results into something that meets their particular needs.
Great. Thanks, Tyler. And I think with that overview, we can actually move on to our breakouts. This just give you information, and we will break out into 3 rooms, and each room will focus on one specific topic, which is data quality, or data documentation, or data access. And data quality will be led by Rob, who will be taking some notes, and you can also contribute in the notes if you want to, and you are encouraged to. Data documentation will be led by Tyler, and data access will be led by Eric. And we'll have 2 rounds, and each round will be 20 minutes. You can switch after 1 round, or if you feel really strongly about one specific topic, you can stay with that, and we'll give a notification of the 2nd round. So if you want to sample both different rooms, you are all free to do so. And if you can open that room, and the breakout rooms are all open now, and you can just hop over to the breakout room icon to join a specific session. And that will encourage you to join, even if you just want to observe what other people are talking about. Please don't drop out. We really want to see the community contribution in this. We want to make sure that all voices are heard.
And if anyone has a, could you mute? If anyone has a problem joining a breakout room, you can drop a note in chat and let me know which room you'd like to be assigned to, and I can move you into that room manually. So happy to help out there. Looks like people are joining really quickly, so that's great.
Yeah.
Data quality, all right.
See, data quality is really popular, which I'm not surprised.
Anna, you can just remind me quickly how I'm supposed to go to a breakout room.
So if you can go to the breakout room on the bottom of your Zoom, did you see that?
No. Oh, yes. Okay. That's what I was missing. Okay. Thank you.
I see it, but it doesn't show me how to get in the room.
So you can see there are 3 rooms, and if you click the number by the room, that gives you option to join.
It says join.
Ed, did you already get, Ed, are you still here? I think it looks like he might have already gotten in there. Let's see, oh, Margaret, okay. Oh, seems like most of the people that put a note in chat have already gotten over there. Can you data access R. Scully? Yep. Oh, wait. Oh, there we go. So assign to data access. Okay. Ellen, I will send you as well to data access. Okay. Anyone else need help getting sent to a room? Window is just blank. Carol, what breakout room would you like to go to? Data access, you bet. Okay. Anyone else need help getting into a room? Let's see.
I can see you have office mates, Annie. I can hear you have
Oh,
office
yeah. It's my husband. Yeah, I think he is in data quality.
Yeah, I heard Rob's voice in the background.
Okay. Okay, so for anyone who is left in the main room here, Ross, Rio, Joe, David, you're welcome to stay here for the next 20 minutes, or I would happily put you in a breakout room if you would like to. Douglas, so do you want me to give a 5-minute warning at the bottom of the hour?
Yes, that would be great. And I'm actually going to try to broadcast a message at the end of the first round, and so people can decide whether they want to stay or switch.
Okay. Oh, wait. So you're saying at the end at 20 minutes?
Yeah.
You can. Okay. Well, then I won't do it. I'll let you do the broadcasts.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. I'm gonna jumping to different rooms to just see what's going on.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Annie.
You bet.
Just thinking back, or while we are waiting people to comment, Tyler, Rob, or Eric, if you want to just give a brief overview of what the discussion mostly focusing about. I see data quality has been really popular. At one point, you got more than 40 people in that room. Rob?
Oh, I was trying to find the unmute. Yes. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And kudos to the tools we're using here to give people the opportunity to put the hand up visually and get some of their thoughts out. And many kudos to our ESIP representative, Cindy, for capturing so many important thoughts. So on data quality, I'll leave it there for right now, unless you have a specific question to me, Douglas. I'm now trying to synopsize what I heard and what we wrote down.
I see we have some questions coming in, and I'm gonna I think there are some questions.
We know this is extremely important, and it's something that we have in our minds as we're thinking about how to roll this program out. So yes, I think elements of this need to be in proposal opportunities and also base funding in agencies. That would be my opinion. Just my personal opinion.
And access comments, unfounded mandates are the devil.
Yes, right, because they erode our ability to focus on the key things. So,
are you envisioning turning the checklist into something like the ESIP data citation guidelines? Yes, that's our hope, to turn the checklist into a guideline that can be distributed. Well, first of all, we need the comments from the community, the contribution from the community, and we'll be sending to the ESIP for distribution and approval and distribution. The third question we have out of the 4 And how much of this do you think could be automated, like a pilot for data? I think the dream world would be like automated, but how long and how fast we can get to that dream world is something need more people to work together on this. And that's why we encourage you all join the ESIP Data Readiness cluster. And if you go to the collaboration areas on ESIP, you can find the link to join that. And some of the assessment can actually be automated. There are some like easy target or low-hanging fruit can target that, but there are some more like nuanced ones like the data quality and other parts of it. Last question, I think a numerical score might complicate an assessment by potential user. And for example, some factors are more important in my mind. How would you rank the scores? That's an open question for now. We do not think a simple numerical score would be implemented immediately. I think the whole purpose of a checklist is to provide the information that's useful for the user, and how we distill that into a numerical score is the future plan. So right now it's more focused on the aspects of the AI ready data and how we assess it. And the final stage would be how we quantify and disseminate the information in a way that do not complicate things and also make it useful. Because we don't want, the last thing we want is a numeric score that people abuse it for some way to select the data. So if it's like ranked 5, it's better than the data set ranked at 4.6. And with that, we have 1 more minute left. I would like to give a big shout out to all the people who participated in the session today, and also for Annie, Cindy, and Marianne for supporting this session by the technology and the note taking. And we will be in touch with all of you who joined our session through Sketch, as well as through your name who you have put in this document. And with that, I will turn into Annie, if you have any announcement from ESIP you want to make.
Thank you, Douglas. And yeah, great session. I will let everyone know that there is a coffee and networking break in 15 minutes. You can find the link to that through Kiko Chat. If you go kind of scroll down, there's a room that says coffee break, and there'll be an image, and it'll have a big picture that says join here. It is using the Wonder application, which is optimized for Chrome or Microsoft Edge. It's not tablet friendly. It is kind of it's a cool free platform, but we encourage all of you to join in and take part in that coffee break. A reminder that our plenary this evening is in honor of Dr. Peter Fox, and that will happen at 6 o'clock Eastern time. So with that, I'll say thank you. I hope to see you all in the coffee break.
Thank you. If you want to keep continuing the conversation, coffee break will be a great place to do that.